So it says a rectangle has an area of 140 square centimeters and a perimeter of 54 centimeters. What are its dimensions? Interesting. Okay. I think it'd be helpful if we just draw a little rectangle over here on the side. I'm going to do that. So there's a rectangle. And let's just call this the width and the length. This is the width and this is the length. So the area, what's the area of a rectangle formula? Well, it's length times width, right? You know that, right? Like if I said, hey, I'm going to take this rectangle right here and I'm going to go, you know, look at the squares. This is what, 4 squares wide and 2 squares high. Well, here, let me make it a little bigger. What if I said I'm going to do one that's 4 by 3? Here we go. So this is 4 by 3. You know how many squares are in there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? You just multiply one side by the other, right? That's how you find the space inside of a rectangle. How many squares are actually inside of a rectangle? You just multiply one side by the other side, don't you? You know that. Okay. And then they're saying it's perimeter. What's perimeter mean? Well, that's how far around the outside. So if you start here, you go width, length, length. So perimeter equals 2 widths plus 2 lengths. It's all 4 sides, 2 widths and 2 lengths added up. It's like if you wanted to walk, if you wanted to walk all the way around a rectangular fenced area, you'd have to cover the width, the length, plus the width, plus the length. The width twice and the length twice. And the area would add up to be 140, they tell me right here, and the perimeter is 54. So basically we have 2 equations with 2 letters, don't we? We have L and W, 2 letters, and we have 2 equations, one for area, one for perimeter. Okay, when they want us to find the length and the width. So how are we going to do it? Well, it's going to be best to basically solve for one letter in one equation and plug it into the other. So let's go so I'll just start with L or W, doesn't really matter. Get L alone in the first equation. Then we're going to plug that in to the second equation is what we're going to do. So if I just go, okay, so length times width is 140. So let's divide, try to get L alone, so let's divide by W, boom. So we've got L equals 140 over W. And then step 2, plug in to second equation. Plug it in the second equation. All right, so I'll take that second equation right here, which is 2 widths plus 2L equals 54. And then I will grab this and plug it in right there for L, right? So we just get L alone in the first equation, plug it into the second. Let's see what happens. So we get 2 width plus 2 times 140 over W equals 54. Okay. Got a few fractions, some important lessons here. If you want to move forward in math and science, deal with fractions and everything. So what do? Well, a whole number interacting with the fraction right here, this is over 1, isn't it? And you multiply, so the 2 multiplies the top, doesn't it? And the 1 multiplies the bottom, doesn't do anything. So it's going to become 2W plus 280 over W equals 54. We good? With that first step, anytime you have a whole number interacting with a fraction, remember, put it over 1. And then the top will multiply the top, and the bottom. Okay, now we get to here. What are we going to do to solve for this? What do you do when you have fractions? So this is important. Because again, if you're going higher in math and science, this is going to come up a lot. So when you have an equal sign and a fraction, That's what we have. We have a fraction, and we have an equal sign, right? What do? Multiply all the terms by the LCD over 1, which in this case is just the W. It's the only thing under the denominator. So I'm going to multiply through by W over 1, and W. It's the same thing as W over 1. I just, yeah, here, let me, I just make it a fraction where it interacts with a fraction. Let me put it on this side, just easier to see. That good? I'm just multiplying through, and right here it'll cancel, won't it? Right? That's what we always do when we have an equal sign with fractions. We multiply through by the LCD over 1. And so what becomes of it? Well, W times 2W is 2W squared plus 280, 54W. We good there? Now we see W squared, don't we? What do you do about W squared? We've done this before. Get a 0 on one side. So I'm just going to jump this guy over here. In other words, what I'm really doing is subtracting 54W from both sides. Like that. Cancels out here. That gets a 0. And we get 2W squared minus 54W plus 280. All right. And now, see how they all have a 2 in common? Divide by 2 in common. Just to make the numbers easier. You don't have to, but it'll just make the numbers nicer. Let's just, right, because you're doing the same thing to both sides of the equal sign. You can always do whatever you want as long as you do it to both sides of the equal sign. So I divided through, and so cancel. Okay, so that's 27W, and this is 140. And 0 divided by 2, half a 0 is just 0, huh? All right, now what do we do? Well, you can factor it, but I've noticed most people don't like factoring. You can just use the quad. I'm going to use the quad. In fact, I think this one won't factor. I think you have to use the quad on this one. So I'm going to do the quad. So get a 0 and do the quad. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, right? And a is 1, b is minus 27, c is 140. So here we go, negative b, so we get negative b plus or minus the square root. These problems are kind of long, aren't they? B squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Okay, let's plug the stuff in. All right, so b, what is b? B is negative 27. Right there. B squared negative 27 minus 4 times a, which is 1 times c, which is 140 all over 2 times a, 2 times 1. All right, quadratic formula, the width equals double negative, you know the drill. It's going to become positive, isn't it? Plus or minus square root. All right, 27 squared, I have no idea. I'm getting 729. Minus 4 times 1 times 140. I'm getting 560. All over 2a. So 2 times 1, 2. All right. And what's that? That is W plus 27 plus or minus what is 7.9 minus 560, 169 over 2. Oh, I think that's clean. Oh, that's just 13, isn't it? Unless I'm forgetting something. Yeah, 13. You know what that means? When the square root comes out clean like that, that means you could have factored it. That means it was factorable. I just didn't notice it. Anyway, it's fine. We're getting there. So we're going to have 27 plus 13 over 2, or W equals 27 minus 13 over 2, right? Two options. And so that's 40 over 220, or what's that going to be? 14 over 2, 7. So it's 20 or 7. So the width can be 20 or 7. And basically the length is the other one. If you plug in, here I'll show you. I don't want to waste too much time, but I want you to see it also. If you plug in now, you'll get the other one. So like see the length right here is 140 over W. So if you want to find the length, you would just go back to that formula. Length is 140 over W. So if you plug in 20, 140 over 20, guess what you get? 7. And then if you do the other one, 140 over W. Sorry, I'm going quick. I'm just not really wanting to do this because it's not really needed. I want to show it to you. 7. So you get 140 over 7. Guess what you get? The other one, the 20. So basically, you get 20 and 7 or 7 and 20. So in other words, it doesn't really matter. Call whichever one the length and width you want to. The width and length are 20 and 7, whichever way you want to call them. So how do they want us to answer? They want the length to be the greater one. Okay, so if the length is the greater one, then that's the 20 and the width is the 7. They say it right there. The length is greater than the width, and the way they want it said. So I actually did it backwards. This should be the length. This should be the width. Like that. All right, whatever. We got it. Length is 20, width is 7. So what did we do? We basically just wrote two equations. Area, length times width is 140. Perimeter, which is the 4 sides, 2 lengths and 2 widths, is 54. I got L alone in the first equation, plugged it in for the second. Then I had this whole number, put it over 1, multiplies the top, and multiply through by the LCD over 1, which is W over 1, W. We get this, get a W squared equation, get a 0, divide out the 2 to make the numbers easier, plug into the quadratic formula, we get our two answers, 20 or 7, plug them in, you get the other one, 20 and 7. Are the two answers. So there we go. Real life application of solving two equations with two letters in which the equations have one unique answer like that. There we go.